Chris, I know people, instructors who teach your book in college as a course. Like they take a course and they're teaching your book. And so the fact that you couldn't even get it published to me is like it's unfathomable. Like it doesn't, it blows my mind. And then you look at where your book is now and the fact that he was open to it and saw, yeah, maybe there's something here. Let's give him an opportunity. I mean, that changed screenwriting. All right, we are back with the legend, screenwriting guru himself, Chris Vogler, author of The Writer's Journey. Thank you for being with us, sir.
Well, it is a pleasure always to talk with you, Jeffrey, and I'm glad we're getting together to talk about today's subject.
Yeah, we are going to talk about basically an in memoriam episode of Michael Wiese, who is the publisher of Michael Wiese Publishing. And he passed this year, and it's heartbreaking because he's led such a unique and wonderful life and provided such great opportunity for writers and gurus like yourself.
Yeah, that's really the biggest takeaway from all this is the social good, the social benefit of this man's life. He called himself Michael Wiese. That's the pronunciation I heard from him, but he answered to Michael Wiese and was fine with that too. But that's really the thing. When you step away and look back, you see this enormously generous, thoughtful, and beneficial, good-hearted attitude the guy had. And I'm speaking only of a little fragment of his life, which was the publishing side of it. His book, Onward and Upward, his memoir, gives you the whole picture. And it is a very, very impressive resume for someone, for an artistic person. But the side that I'm most familiar with is his gift to the world as a publisher. He started out on this road after doing many different things, a photographer, musician. He traveled extensively with a variety of influential, important thinkers. He hung out a lot with Buckminster Fuller, for one thing, and sort of was almost like a road manager for him for a while, and just soaked in all of that. He spent time with Salvador Dali and many other people. The list of people, he's really a Zelig type character who touched almost everybody in the art and music scene during the late 70s and through the Summer of Love and on into the 70s. So, like I say, my aspect of it was that he came around to publishing in a way that was sort of emblematic of his whole attitude towards publishing, which was, if it's not there, if there's no book on the subject, well, then maybe I'm the guy to write it. Yeah. So he started writing about financing independent films and making these little books in the early days of self-publishing, desktop publishing. And it sort of slowly built a library of helpful books, and always with this attitude of, look, here it is for you. For the creative person, it's difficult. He acknowledged that he had a hard road himself, I think, to get information and to figure out how things worked. It was all done by scratching around for it, and nobody was turning it over to him. So he had to discover these things himself, and then had this generous impulse to share that with the rest of the creative community. And he got to me in the mid 90s and early 90s. And that sort of pushed his work in another direction.
Yeah.
He's been sort of on the technical side mostly, with his books on independent filmmaking and budgeting and scheduling and so forth. But he moved into the creative world with my book, The Writer's Journey, and certainly opened the door for me. It was a true life-changing thing for me to encounter him and to get his support. So that led to a whole series of books on screenwriting and almost any other craft. I mean, this is the beautiful thing, is that he created this huge library of books that were all written with the same do-it-yourself impulse. By people like me who looked around and said, in my particular specialty, whether it was sound editing or how to direct actors or how to compose scores or whatever the subject was, somebody would look around and say, I wish there was a book. And there doesn't seem to be a guidebook on my thing, so maybe I'm the one to do it. And then he was there ready to launch these books and collected quite an impressive library. And I think sometimes they found that people would tune into this and realize, if I'm going to be an independent filmmaker, I need all of these books because they were so systematically covering every possible skill and area that you need. So it's really an impressive achievement.
Well, I have to say, if you've read screenwriting books, you've probably read one from Michael Wiese Publishing, right? I mean, your book, of course. I mean, I'm just looking at here, Hollywood Standard, Save the Cat. I mean, like, the biggest books out there in screenwriting, he has published and really kind of led the way for that hobbyist to take it to the next level and become a developing screenwriter. So it really is something. And the cool thing about him filling this niche, like you said, is it came from a love of filmmaking. I didn't know this. I just learned that he was the producer on Hardware Wars, which when I was a kid was viral before viral existed. We were getting it from like the back storage rooms of your local Family Video. And anybody who doesn't know what Hardware Wars was, it was a low budget parody of Star Wars, and it was hysterical. And once I learned, I went, oh my God, everything makes sense.
Yeah, that's a beautiful one to kind of stand for a lot of qualities that Michael had. He had a wicked, dry sense of humor, and it certainly comes across there. I mean, in the marketing of that short parody film, one of the taglines he created was, you'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll kiss $8 goodbye. So he was self-mocking as well as very funny on looking at Star Wars, for example, and having a good time making fun of that. Yeah, that was an early triumph for him. He had been doing very, very cutting edge, surreal, strange, interesting internal films. That was really how he started. It really got rolling, I think, because of that. He was from the Champaign-Urbana area in Illinois, and was always kind of a rebel and an artist, a musician. He was a very good drummer. And just took to music and to rhythms. And I think that was a very important thing, was this, he had a good sense of rhythm that I think he applied to editing the books too, just a sense of what the flow should be. But he did some very personal films, very internal films that had a lot of mirror images in them and
Wow.
ghostly superimpositions and very sophisticated, interesting visual sense. But then he was able to step over into this comedy area and also made Hardware Wars a big success. That was a launch pad for him and his company that really took off. So that was just again one aspect, one splinter of this guy's
I mean,
really.
he sounds like a Renaissance man, which you don't really see often nowadays. Most times you see somebody who specializes, but I've read that he was almost the drummer for Jefferson Airplane. I mean, that's like absolutely wild, you know?
Yeah, he would have been
Um,
good. I'm sure it would have been a different history for him, but that's typical of him. The kind of he had a lot of near misses or close
yeah.
calls, things like that, because he was so out there. I think his meeting with Salvador Dali kind of
Wow.
is emblematic of how he operated. He was in New York to show one of his strange personal films, and he saw out of the fog on the New York street, here comes the man with the curling mustaches, Salvador Dali, and he just went up to him and said, "I have a film. I think you'd love it, and you've got to see this film." So Salvador Dali said, "Okay, come to my hotel, and we'll work out a way so I can look at this thing."
That's
And
fantastic.
then Dolly got behind it and accompanied him on tour and
Wow.
around setting up things, creating events. That was another thing about Michael, is that he knew how to create an event, a happening. It was part
Yeah.
of the Summer of Love feeling. He was very good at that. And in San Francisco, where he was a big cultural influence, he would arrange these midnight movies, and he sort of was a pioneer of that whole trend, which was a real powerhouse creatively in the 70s.
Yeah.
This
I mean,
whole
still, that's still a culture.
thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And he started it just to showcase his own film, uh,
Wow.
but people came and just wanted to be immersed in a kind of trippy experience. So he created other films, and he created light
Wow.
shows, and he did smoke effects and dancers, and did all sorts of things to just create rich, wonderful experiences for people. And he was really, really good at that.
I know I can say for myself, I'm hitting that age where you start really thinking about your legacy. What are you leaving? What are you leaving behind? We've walked this planet for so long. What kind of a difference have we made? Will people remember me? And looking at what Michael has created and really the genre of screenwriting education almost, uh his legacy is set. Like he will be remembered, and Onward and Upward is a great look into his life as well.
Yes, yeah, it's a very good example, I think, of a memoir, um, because he's giving you along the way the not just the things that happened and the people that he met,
Right.
but the developments in his own personality, the things that shaped him, and that then allowed him in turn to go on and have a very significant impact in shaping the creative scene that we see today. Um,
I think it
he
makes sense, especially if you're reading a book where he talks about all of these near misses, because personally, I believe you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Mhm.
And then eventually you find your way to where you're going to go, and then you look back and you realize all of the opportunities that you missed or didn't work out was exactly for a reason. And I think we see it looking at what he's done and the incredible publishing and filmmaking that he's done as well. um Chris, I want to thank you for coming on the show and talking about Michael's legacy. And I know Onward and Upward is now available on audiobook, so people can even listen to it in their car, which is a thing I'm doing now.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and I just say in kind of winding this thing up that the thing that strikes me looking back is I've learned in life that people are either open or closed, and they're open to ideas, open to other people, open to new things, or they're not. And a lot of people, especially in the world of publishing, are set to the closed setting, and so they're always shutting the door and always finding reasons why not to publish, or
Right.
acting as gatekeeper sort of. And he had to do some of that, but was basically open. And that's how I got through the screens. I mean, I had a hell of a time getting my book published, and had gone through all of the things you're supposed to do, writing
Unbelievable.
proposals, going to New York, going around a dozen different publishers and trying to pitch my idea, and it just was not going over. And it was finally through his openness. He was at the gym on an exercise bike sitting next to a friend of mine, and the two of them are grinding away. And my friend, a guy named Ron Deutsch, who eventually hooked up with Michael also, just said, well, there's this guy Vogler who's got this book and he can't get it across. And what's it
Wow.
about? Michael said, and my friend explained. And that's how the thing came together, just from being open to
Yeah.
somebody and listening and being receptive. So I'm
I
impressed.
it's incredible to me. To me, it sounds like fate because Michael was open to that opportunity and said, yeah, yeah, let's do it. Whereas you couldn't get it published. And that is wild because, Chris, I know people, instructors who teach your book in college as a course. Like they take a course and they're teaching your book. And so the fact that you couldn't even get it published to me is like it's unfathomable. Like it doesn't, it blows my mind. And then you look at where your book is now and the fact that he was open to it and saw, yeah, maybe there's something here. Let's give him an opportunity. I mean, that changed screenwriting. So it's
Not
absolutely incredible.
It's not only that, but also that he had an attitude of persistence about things. And that's why my book and many of the others that he publishes, like the Save the Cat series and so forth, um, books on screenwriting, directing, any thing you can think of, they have legs. They go on and on and on because he was committed to keeping the books in print, and would ride out the times when the sales dipped, and he'd do things creatively to bring the sales back up again so he could justify
Wow.
continuing the books. And he was just determined to keep these things in print. And I can see lots of other scenarios where my book might have been picked up by a New York publisher, but it would have been blown out in one season, and they would have printed, however many thousand
Right.
copies. That would have been it.
Yeah.
And there would be no afterlife. But he
Yeah.
gave my book and these other books a long, long shelf life, and that's one of the many things I'm grateful
Yeah.
to.
Incredible. I mean, because there are so many predatory publishers out there. And so the fact that, he's a man with integrity is admirable, especially in business.